All right, welcome everybody. We are live on Evangelize LA's YouTube channel with all three of us, Father Tim, Lauren, and me, Chris. And we are going to talk a little bit about Lauren's nonprofit today, and the story behind Hearts of Joy International. I met Lauren in a it was a FaceTime call with Austin Quick and like several others.
Oh,
And
gosh.
yeah, Father Tim was there.
I was there incognito.
Yeah,
There was like 50 people on this FaceTime.
yeah, it was like 50 people on this FaceTime, and Austin does that, and so shout out to him. But yeah, we got connected, and Lauren lives on the west side still, right?
Yeah.
Over by Culver City.
Mhm.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and begin. Lauren, talk about yourself. How did you, where are you from? How was it coming to LA? And because this is the Evangelize LA podcast, how has it been since living here? And then tell us a little bit about, your story and Hearts of Joy International and how that began, and so on and so
Oh my gosh, so many questions.
Yeah.
So I'm from New Jersey girl. And I came out here a few months ago. Some of my family is here, and there's something very peaceful about the beach for me. And I just was like, sold when I went to Santa Monica. I'm like on the beach, and there's something beautiful about like seeing God in nature as well. And I came out here like a couple weeks ago, and now I'm here. But I grew up in New Jersey. I'm one of 5 siblings. We're Italian, so there's always lots of talking, lots of hand motions, lots of food. Like everything we do is like based around like, when are we gonna eat dinner? Like, you know what I mean? But a very awesome, just kind of like childhood and growing up and community there. I started my nonprofit 3 years ago now. And Hearts of Joy International provides heart surgery for children with Down syndrome. Because children with Down syndrome, so 50% of them will have a congenital heart defect. So they're born with that. And this is something that is really life-threatening. And so in order to prevent future like life-threatening damage, you have to have this corrective surgery before the child is about a year old. And if you don't, they typically will not live past like their 5th birthday. And so I've always had just a passion for serving this community and people with disabilities, but in particular Down syndrome. And I have been blessed to like travel all over the world and kind of see different pockets of the world and how people are treated. As I've done a lot of mission work within the past like 6 years. And it wasn't until I went to Uganda, East Africa, like probably 4 years ago now, that I saw, just that these kids with Down syndrome were not being treated with dignity and love, and they're not seen for the gifts that they truly are, and they're kind of like tossed to the side, seen as unvaluable. A lot of them are abandoned in orphanages, and there's a lot more to that story, and I can get in much more detail, but that's kind of it in a nutshell. Like I was inspired by a baby in Uganda who had Down syndrome who needed surgery, and God just told me, like, Lauren, like, I want you to help her. And I was like, okay, like that sounds easy enough, just like one person. And so I said yes. And then that kind of spiraled into like, okay, now I want you to start an organization to help other children like her. And now we work in Uganda and India and the Philippines and Mexico, as well as like here in the States. We do some counseling for mothers who get the prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome and help them through that whole process of like setting them up with a doctor and a cardiologist if the child needs heart surgery. And so we do work here as well, but the work looks very different because there's not many resources in developing countries. So sorry, that was a mouthful, and there's a lot more where that came from, but that's like a little bit of, kind of how it started and why I do this.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Is that, and I hope a lot of people listening and watching can really draw from that as well, is that you probably didn't go over to Uganda expecting to change Uganda.
Not at all.
But you went over there maybe expecting to be changed by Uganda, and you let it happen. And now, now it is kind of changing the world, one person at a time. And so, I saw Haiti like that when I went a few years ago, was just to have that experience and say, I'm there for 5 days. Like, I'm not going to change anything while I'm there. But if I let it happen, I'm going to be changed by that. And so that's amazing that that's where your story with all of this started, was, you didn't go over there to change anything, but to be changed. And now there's a ton of change coming through you. So that's an amazing start. So.
Thank you. Yeah, I do believe too, like I talk a lot about the Mother Teresa, the ripple effect, because if you're open to the ways that God is calling you or the things that he's asking you to do in your life and the little things, like I just said yes to that one baby, and that rippled into like, we've now done 35 heart surgeries. Like even me saying that is like, whoa, like I'm not a big like numbers person, like, oh my gosh, we did so many, like that's beautiful. But it's like, those are 35 lives that we've changed and made an impact. And yeah, God has worked through us to save those like little souls. And I just know like God really has his hand on this ministry because he loves these kids so much. And it's just like, yeah, things just kind of happen for us. Like I said, like I said yes initially, and that just spiraled into this, like, it's almost like I'm a fool if God asks me and I say no. It's like, how could I say no to the things that he puts in front of me? It's like so obvious that this is what he wants. And I'm working for him. So I'm just like grateful that he's using me as an instrument and we're able to impact these families. And it's funny you said like it changed me, because it absolutely did. But now we are kind of like the shift of that is like, we are fighting to change the culture there, but it's not like me coming in and telling them, what are you doing? Like waving fingers, you have to believe this. It's in the education and the nurturing of those relationships with the families that we help, that I do see like this huge shift and change in the moms particularly, and in the families, and how they view their child. And that's like one of my favorite things. It's beautiful. We're saving the child's life. We're getting this necessary heart surgery. But like for a family to think that their child has no value, and then they work with us and then they see, no, like my child is here for a purpose, and they do have dignity and worth. And that's like, that shift is like unbelievable. It's my favorite part of the job.
Yeah. And you mentioned Mother Teresa, and I was just praying over and preaching about a quote of hers, which was super powerful for me yesterday, where she's talking about the difficulty that a lot of mothers have bringing children into the world, and how the culture can kind of set that up as a war between mothers and their children. And she says, what's the solution to this is to teach mothers how to live and love until it hurts. Love until it hurts their schedule and their free time, and that it costs everything. And so that sounds like that's what's going on here too, is just at the heart of this, is helping mothers learn how to love their children when maybe the culture has taught them otherwise.
Sure. And it's so ingrained, especially in Uganda and other parts of the world where we work. It's so ingrained culturally for so many years that like, if you can't, or if you're told you can't do something, you're not going to be good enough. You don't want this child's going to be a burden, or, they're going to take your joy, or they're going to cause you pain. If you listen to that narrative, which is said to them, even here sometimes with prenatal diagnosis, oftentimes they're like, you don't want that. Like that's the immediate response. You're going to believe that if it's told to you enough. And that's just our human nature. And so we kind of come in and we shift that narrative, and we're like, congratulations, like you're having a baby, like this is your child. When we get the mothers when they are pregnant here, and then in the other countries we say the same thing, congratulations, you have this beautiful baby, we're here to support you and help you, because they feel very alone in that. There's really no support system set up. There's no communities where they see these children thriving, or even see these children in general. Sometimes in some of these cultures, there's a lot of shame that goes along with it, very superstitious cultures. And so they keep the child inside. Like you don't even see people with Down syndrome because it's a physical disability. So you can tell with the face, okay, like something is different with this child. And so they may not know that that's Down syndrome until we tell them and explain what that is. But they know enough that they're just saying, you know what, no, like we don't want this. We'll hide this child, and we're not going to give this child love or care or anything. And so we're trying to, like, we practice what we preach. We tell our families these things, and we preach the truth and the reality of what Down syndrome is, but also give them the tools to be able to care for that child. We're not trying to scare anybody, like so often the doctors do here, like, oh my gosh, your child's never going to walk or talk, or any of these things. And maybe that is true, but it's also like, that's your child. Like, what if your child had one arm, or, you know what I mean? Or one eyeball? It's like, that's still your baby. And so that life was created for a purpose. So that's a big thing for us. It's more than just providing, you know, the heart surgery or the funding for the heart surgery or connecting them to a hospital. It's like, we're going to walk with them through that entire process. And we have people on our team that like counsel them and work alongside the healthcare team to make this an experience that is as easy as possible for them, because it is very difficult having a child with a disability, but also having that child be physically sick and have something wrong with their, like, medically. So it's a lot of stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, I imagine, you know, the narrative, shifting that narrative of these are kids with dignity. The Christian, you know, the Christian perspective is so revolutionary in cultures like this. Just thinking as a history teacher of Rome, you know, Rome had that sort of same mentality that these lives don't matter. You can, you know, like Pope Francis says, the culture of the throwaway culture. And what's so revolutionary is not only saying that, you know, that this child has dignity, but that God himself has identified with this child in their suffering. And the cross becomes such the heart of the sort of shifting narrative. And I know you're not going there, and your organization's not about preaching the gospel or anything, but per se in the like explicit announcement of good news or anything like that. But it is good news, actually, because what you're saying is, you know, this child has dignity, and there's an account of this. There's a reason why they have dignity, and it's because the God of the universe loves them, and they've been created for this purpose. And you get to share. They do have a purpose according to the creator of the cosmos, you know. And it's so it must be tough to shift that narrative and that mentality. But what you're right, like when you come in and someone else that it's like, you know, when you're a kid and you're like playing a video game or you're like doing something and you're like, this is so boring, and all of a sudden like 3 other kids come in the room and they're like, yes, this is awesome, and all of a sudden that mimetic desire effect that like that one scholar talks about, like Bishop Barron talks about it, we're like, oh, they like it, so like I like it. And I imagine your organization is like that. You're like, oh my gosh, this is awesome, congratulations, like what a great opportunity to learn to love. And they're like, wait, what? Like this is actually this is cool, you know, this is supposed, you know, it's really awesome what you do.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, like I said, these people have just never heard it before. I mean, they're willing, like they want to learn, they're seeking truth, they want to know more about this child and be well equipped to take care of it. They just don't know how. And so that's kind of how I see our role. And I'll talk about the ripple effect till I'm like blue in the face, because we will send like one child from Uganda to India. They'll get their surgery because our main hospital is in India. And then they'll come back to their village, and what's been happening is like they talk to their neighbors, and that desensitizes that narrative of like, this child is worth nothing. Like it must be worth something if this organization is working with us and we sent them to get surgery to save their lives. Like just our service in and of itself speaks volumes. And then once the families go back, people talk, word travels fast amongst these like little towns. And we've actually had a lot of patients referred to us from other patients, because, or like they'll run into them at the hospital when they're getting their child's heart scanned, or, you know, getting a chest x-ray, and they notice that they both have children that have this condition, and it kind of like writes itself. Like I said, like I just continue to say yes to the little things that like God asks me in each day with this mission. But I know that he is like just really providing the grace, like to these families, to everything that we touch and everything that we do with these families. It's just like one endless ripple. Like it really is. And I believe like, I going back to Mother Teresa, I often contemplate like her yes, in relation to Our Lady's yes as well. Like without hesitation, she said, be it done to me according to thy word. And then I think of what if she didn't say that? Like, look at how different the world would be. And then I think of Mother Teresa, like she was already a nun, like she was a sister, she was teaching in a school in India, she was happy, like she was fulfilled in her vocation. And then God came in and was like, no, like you're going to leave and start something called the Missionaries of Charity, and you're going to serve the poor. And once again, she could have been like, no, thanks. Like, I'm fine the way I am. I'm already living out my vocation. But she was like, no, this is truly what God wants. And look at how many thousands, if not like millions of people were impacted by her one yes. And that's kind of how I perceive it in myself, and always saying yes to the little things that God is asking me, but also the ripple of that yes, that we may not even see that while we're here on earth. But it's just so cool to think about, like most people I think would settle or be like, no, because of fears or anxieties. And I'm not saying, oh, I'm so great for doing this, but I just encourage people, like, even if there's a lot of unknowns, like I never started a nonprofit, like I'm trying to figure it out. Like, you know, God will give you that grace if you're willing to be obedient and say yes. And the impact that that can make on the world, like the world is less than if you say no. I always think about that. I'm like, whoa, like there would have been all these families that wouldn't have gotten this or like been impacted in this way. And it's just like so cool to think about. I just really encourage everyone. I'm like, listen, I don't care how scared you are. Someone says that, right? There's a priest or someone ministry that's like, do it scared. I'm like, yes, like,
Yeah.
I don't know who says that. Sorry for not knowing, but it's just like, God will give you the grace when you need it in the moment. And like, it's going to be the craziest ride ever, but it's going to bring you the most joy. So it's worth it.
Yeah. In my experience, coming to know some families who have children who have Down syndrome, and there was especially one family in the parish where I grew up, where I got to know that family well, and just to see the way that they love their child. And they learn a lot about loving. Like that's what we're talking about, is they learn how to love by loving their child. But I've also come to notice that they learn a lot about love from their child and how their child loves. And it's not an easy life, of course, and that's why we're in an invitation to the cross, right, in every family. But what I'm learning from these families too is that these children, they just, when they're loving, they're just loving so freely. It's almost like they don't really care who's looking and seeing the way that they love. And so what's your experience with some of these children and, kind of receiving love from them as well?
Well, they love without bounds. So it almost like reminds me of like the Father's love for us, like how God sees each one of us, because they don't care about your credentials or like, oh, did you go to school or what are you studying? When you go to an event or something and you're meeting new people, you're like, what do you do for work? That's like your number one question. It like kind of makes me crazy, because it's like, how much can you learn about a person, like from just that question. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here, but they don't see any of that, or it's not important to them. Like they see you for your heart, and they take it at face value. So like what you tell them, and like they almost like see past that, and they can tell like the genuineness or just your heart and the type of person that you are. And for me, that's been like they have shown me like the love of God in its fullest form, because I believe that that's how God sees each one of us. He's not saying, what can you do for me, or what can you do? You know what I mean? He just loves us because he created us, and like we are here and a child of his, and that's enough. And I just often feel that there's a lot of parallels between the disabilities community and God, and how he sees each of us. And then I just have the best time with people with Down syndrome. They're hilarious. They're so much fun. Like they just show me such unconditional love, and they don't like you said, they have that unreserved, like don't really care. Not that they don't care, but it's not important to them. You could be anybody and they're going to love you. I often feel like we can choose, am I going to love this person, or am I going to hate this person or judge this person? And they can choose too, but they almost always choose to love the person. And I just, I really see God in that. And I also see that kind of reflecting on the mothers after a certain period of time. And some mothers know that right away. And there's, like we follow them and support them through that. And like I said, some mothers need to be like encouraged in that and discovering that. But Nonetheless, like these kids are a gift. And I think we've lost sight of that. Even just the fact that each one of us is a gift and has something to offer the world and is here for a purpose. Like God created that human person for a purpose. And we need to remember that.
Lauren, what was it like getting, raising that the money for that first heart surgery? Were you like, I can't believe this is actually happening? And I'm sure you got the flights for them and that family. And then, take us through that. What was that like?
I'm so glad you asked, because this is like the craziest story. Okay, so buckle up. So I met this baby and she was about 6 months old, which is the perfect sweet spot for getting the surgery. So what happens is if you wait any longer, essentially this is a hole in the baby's heart, or multiple holes. And so if you don't close the hole with this corrective surgery, the blood pours into other parts of the body where it's not supposed to be. And so therefore it can flood their lungs, they can have difficulty breathing, and then all the other organs kind of start to fail. And so once you hit a certain age or a certain amount of time where that damage has happened, it becomes irreversible. You can't repair the heart without the lungs failing, and you can't repair the lungs without the heart failing. And the child becomes inoperable, and then they won't live. And so this baby was 6 months old, and I knew, I'm like, if she has a heart defect, like we got to do this now. Like this is when between 6 months to a year. And so I actually I said, God told me, you're just going to help her. But I didn't even know if she had a heart defect. I was just holding her, and I could tell by the way she was breathing. She had very labored breathing that she most likely had a heart defect. And so I came home, and there was just something on my heart that was like, there's something with this baby. Like I couldn't stop thinking about her. And I kept in touch with the family. I had a friend there, and that's actually how I went to Uganda in the first place. And I was staying with her. And so I kept in touch with that friend, and we were like, let's get this family to the hospital. And in the meantime, waiting to see if that baby had a heart defect or not, I had taught a class while I was in Uganda to mothers about Down syndrome. And in the class, I was very specific. I showed pictures. I said, this is what a child with Down syndrome looks like physically. These are the signs to look out for. If you ever meet a child or see a child with this condition, tell their parents that they have this condition, they have Down syndrome, and take them to a hospital to check their heart. That's the number one thing that you need to do. And so the translator from that class was out like on a village, like 8 hours away from where I taught that class, and had met a family, met a baby, recognized that she had Down syndrome from what I said in the class, talk about the ripple effect. I could have never, ever thought that this would happen, literally ever. That's how great God is. And they met this baby. She was 2 years old. They told the mom. She didn't know what that was. They took her to get her heart checked, and she actually had multiple holes in her heart. So I decided to help both of them. And so I made a GoFundMe video, and I talked about her story. And I said, we need to raise $5,000 was the amount in Uganda at the hospital for this one baby. I did a whole campaign on it, and I started to raise the money pretty quickly. And I was very encouraged by that. I was like, wow, like people really want to help, because I know why I love this, but I just was very encouraged by how the community came together and really supported these girls. And then so I started to raise 5,000, 6,000, 7,000. I'm like, oh, like, okay, like we're going to be able to do both of them. And then we found out the other little baby did have a heart defect. She had also multiple holes. And so I'm at like 9,000. And I'm like, okay, we need 10,000 for this to happen. And if you've read any of Mother Teresa's books, she's like the patron saint of like me, but also this ministry. Like she prays very specifically on numbers. She says, Lord, like, I know you want this, so you're going to have to provide me with X amount of money, say like $50,000 and 25 cents for this new convent or whatever, this new home for the sick. And so I prayed, I was like, I need $1,000, Lord, like, so that we can do both of these girls. And like within like 5 minutes, I like checked my email and I wanted exactly $1,000. I was like, I used the Mother Teresa method. Someone donated exactly that amount. And then I said, okay, we have $10,000. This is great. And so originally they were supposed to be operated on in Uganda, but because the one baby was so malnourished and little, and then the other baby was older, they thought maybe the older baby was inoperable and the younger baby was too small to operate on. So they were on the wait list for quite some time. And then all of a sudden, as soon as I raised the money, they rejected them. And then I was back to square one. I'm sitting on all this money, not knowing what to do or where to go. And so I contacted every hospital, cardiologist, cardiac organization, like literally in the world, abroad and in the States. And I applied to like every program there was. I don't even remember how many at this point, because I was just like, here are their medical files, like, please help us. I was willing to go anywhere for them and help them. And I get an email like several months later. I mean, while I'm praying like a novena to Mother Teresa. And once again, I'm like, God, I know this is what you want because you've made it very clear, like, but you need to help a sister out. Like, I have $10,000 and nowhere to send these kids. Like, help me. And so I get an email from an organization in Uganda that says we've accepted the girls. I didn't even remember like reaching out to them because there were so many organizations. And they said, we accept the girls, but we take all of our patients to India. And I was like, oh, Mother Teresa, Calcutta, India. Okay, like, I think this is the right move. And then I read the end of the email, and this was not like a religious organization by any means, but he included in the end of the email, he's like, by the way, the hospital that we're sending you to, the founder of this hospital is an Indian cardiologist named Dr. Devi Shetty, and he was Mother Teresa's personal cardiologist for the last 5 years of her life on earth. Like, when she died, because she died of like a heart attack, he was like at the mother house with her. And I was like, this is crazy. What? So I knew, I said, okay, God, this is where you want them. And like Mother Teresa interceded, and it just was crazy. And so I brought them to this hospital in India, and the little baby got the surgery, but the older baby did not, because she was too old and everything I just described had happened to her. Her lungs were too filled up with fluid, and she, was not able to be operated on. So I learned a lot through that trip. And I think I was just like, okay, I'm going to try this and see. I still didn't really know that I was going to start an organization after that. I just thought I was doing this because this is what God wanted in the moment. I didn't really see like the big picture, and I still don't. I'm still trying to figure it out. But that experience was like, okay, there are a lot more children that I don't want to end up like that older baby, because she just didn't have a chance. And that's just because they didn't know. It was just for lack of awareness of her condition or knowing that she had the heart defect. And so, several months after that, I came home from India because I was there for about like a month and a half with them. And I realized, I got to do something. Mm-hmm.
What year was that?
That was 2018. And then 2017. I started the organization in 2018. And then I think we officially became a nonprofit in 2019, but you have to like incorporate the business first.
Right.
So I did all the legality and stuff for like a year after that.
Which is a headache, right?
Yes.
But so after that, so then you came back, and were you like, okay, there are probably others that need help, and so maybe I should make this something more formal and institutional to get them the resources and so on.
I just knew that there were so many other babies like them, and that it wasn't their fault that they're born in a country that can't support them or has a lack of awareness for like the care that they need. And I knew, based on my experience, I have like 14 years experience with this population, I have so many resources here in the States. Like, I knew that I could do something. And now I tried to like Google to see if something like this existed, because I was like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. It'd be so great if someone was already doing this. Nope. Because I was like, I'll do anything I don't want to start a nonprofit. It's like so hard. There was nothing. And it just became very clear after a while that like God wanted this. And not only like there are hundreds, thousands of cardiac organizations doing unbelievably amazing things. I say like there can never be enough of us, but we are the only one doing this for Down syndrome. And I really take pride in that, because like that's 50% of kids born with Down syndrome have a congenital heart defect. I was like, how did no one else think of this before me? Like, that was nuts to me. It's not like 2%. I mean, I would do it if it was 1%, but it's like 50%. And no one's ever thought, hey, maybe we should cater something specifically to this population. Like, and our program has grown to be a lot more than just the heart surgery. It's about like learning and embracing and loving this child and understanding and giving the families tools to be able to support this child. So I knew that it had to be specific. It had to be something on its own, because it was so unique to what every other cardiac organization is doing, because it was so like specific to Down syndrome in particular. So.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to ask, because you've been talking a lot about how important education is. But I saw like I know that you guys fundraise, and that's your main thing. You fundraise the money, but so in the future, are you thinking about, I mean, you're already doing a lot of education. What's the future of Hearts of Joy? I mean, you've already had 35 heart surgeries in 3 years. Like, has the Lord led you in another direction in terms of growing this and saying, okay, maybe I should think strategically about an educational piece to this? Speaking with families formally, more like hosting maybe little mini conferences or seminars or something like that.
Yeah, so we actually do that already. So in every country where we are, we do like an educational course when we get there, and that could be small or large. In the Philippines, it's a super large community of parents with kids with Down syndrome. It's like awesome. And in Uganda, it's not the same. So we do more on a smaller scale there, but the education is the same. And yeah, my hope for the organization moving forward is to just be able to continue what we're doing with more depth. So like making sure that we're really being diligent and following up with the families. And I'm concerned about the complete care of the child. Like, I think what also makes us unique is that like your relationship starts with us with the heart surgery, but doesn't end there. We visit, we do follow-ups. We're concerned about how the child's progressing and growing and services for them. But we have a lot of other partner organizations and people that are in our network that we can say, hey, if you need therapy for your child and support, here's another organization that's doing something in your city or in your country, and see to follow up. Like, we're very much involved in that follow-up. And I don't think many other organizations are like that. They send the money, and that's great because they are saving a child's life, but we are really heavily invested in the rest of that child's life, because then it goes in vain and the child survives and it's great, but then, you know, they're abandoned by their family because their family doesn't understand them. It's like, it's one and the same for me. Like, the heart surgery is just as important, and providing these resources and education and tools for them to be able to be sustainable, and like teaching them a skill so that they can get a job, so that they can pay for the follow-up medication, you know, after the child's maybe had to have a pacemaker after the surgery. Like, it's a lifetime of care that it falls on the parent, and we want to equip them to be able to care for their child far beyond the heart surgery. It kind of begins with that for us. So
that's awesome.
Yeah,
that is awesome. So any other, I'm so curious, any other like stories that you could tell, like some amazing stories? I'm sure there are so many, but
so many.
Just by way of sort of wrapping up here, I'm just curious, you know, if there are any other stories or.
Yeah, so there's one baby that comes to mind in particular. Her name is Blessing. And so she received her heart surgery, I think 2 years ago now. She's from Uganda. We brought her to India, and we actually just released, like, on our social media and YouTube, her story. And this is one child who, like, shouldn't have made it. Like, she was so sick, so small. And when her parents came to us, or when her mom came to us, it wasn't looking good for her. She didn't have a lot of time, and the family had really nothing. They sold their goats, like they lived on a farm. They sold everything they have so that she could get a passport. Like, they worked so hard to make this work for her. And I actually remember praying a novena to Mother Teresa again for this baby, because she also talked about in a lot of her books, like, if you can't get a visa or you can't get a passport or something's going crazy with like international travel, like, she would always pray the Memorare. So like, I was doing that as well. And just like in that spirit of Mother Teresa and how she served these people. And so I was doing all those things because it was really hard for her to get a visa. She couldn't get the yellow fever vaccination for some reason. Like, everything was going wrong for this poor baby and family. And I was like, God, what is happening? You know? She finally, by some miracle, gets on the airplane. We meet her in India, and every other child, we had 4 kids there at this time, got their surgery within the first 4 days of us being there, because the doctors review the information very early on. So we know when we're going to do the surgery, how we're going to do it. And there's pre-operation like testing and all this stuff. But we pretty much know once we accept a child that, okay, this is when they're going to get the surgery. Little Blessing was sick for 2 weeks with a fever. She couldn't get the surgery. And then I'm thinking, we brought her all the way here. Like, this is crazy. And I just remember, like, her mom didn't speak English, but we all prayed over the baby, like the day, like she finally was fever free for like 24 hours or 48 hours. And then we all prayed over her that morning, like our team and her mom and the other moms that were there, which was very unique because everyone on this particular mission was Catholic, which has never happened before. Every mother, every child. And so we all prayed together, and we had our whole community praying for Blessing, like the whole time we were there, and offering a lot of masses and all these things for her. And she finally got the surgery. She's going to be 2 years old. I'm going to send you the video. If anyone wants to check out our YouTube, it's Heart to Joy International, because this video just like explains it all so beautifully. And that's like one story where everything was just against her. Like, it was just so hard for her. And yet, like, God fought for her, and she's like a literal miracle. And her name is Blessing. So I was like, okay, this child's going to be special. Yeah. And that's just one. There's like many, many more where that came from. Every one of our patients has some crazy story like that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I was just checking out your YouTube page. I put a link in the
awesome.
in the chat for people that want to check that out, and then I will also link to that below. Awesome.
Great.
Well,
yeah.
Thank you so much for starting this, for saying yes, like Our Lady. 35 kids have gotten surgery, and a lot of other families have been affected. And I was thinking, as soon as the show began, with all like the craziness that you like hear about going on in the church and stuff like that, and sometimes you forget, it's like, oh, there are people actually doing the work of Christ rather than just spitting stuff off on like Catholic Twitter or something. Like, there are actually people that are so busy with trying to save lives, and it honestly is refreshing for all of us. I think to just, the best way I think to correct all the chit chat like in the church is to get out of yourself and serve, and to listen to people like you. And thank you for saying yes, and we want to support you as much as possible. So any story you want to come on and tell, feel free. And what else I was gonna say? Awesome. And for everyone, I put a link to heartsofjoyinternational.com. There's also a donate link in the chat, so please donate to the organization. And then Father Tim, any wrap-up comments? Lauren, how else can other people find you other than the YouTube channel and the website?
Yeah, so we're also on Facebook and Instagram, Hearts of Joy International. And you can email us, info@heartsofjoyinternational.com. Reach out. We have a phone number on the website. I don't have it memorized, but the website is like the hub of everything that we do. And there's lots of ways to get involved. And I love hearing from people who like hear my story or learn about Hearts of Joy and feel called to, be involved in it. So please reach out if this touched you, or you feel like you want to learn more. I'm happy to, connect and talk with you.
Awesome. All right, Father Tim, you want to go ahead and wrap us up maybe with any closing thoughts and then a prayer and blessing?
Yeah, I mean, just Lauren, thank you for bringing your story to Los Angeles. Like, we so need this here. Like Chris was saying, is that if we want to make sense of everything that's happening in the church right now, go out there and love, right? And I just heard it, I think it was yesterday, with somebody saying that, if theology is confusing to you at the moment, just go out and do a gratuitous act of love, and then it's going to start making sense. And so thanks for helping us make more sense of what's happening here in Los Angeles and what God's doing. Let's just enter into a little bit of prayer to wrap our time up here. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Oh, Lord Jesus, you are healer, and not just the physical healer, but the healer of our hearts and our souls. And so we thank you for inviting us into your mission and into your love poured out into the world. Just continue to give courage to those who are mothers and fathers, to the strength to the hands of our doctors, and just to us to go out just with that gratuitous act of love, not counting the cost, not calculating how much it will cost us, but loving until it hurts. And so we just ask the intercession of Saint Mother Teresa as well, to give us hearts like hers, hearts for that mission, hearts to not just serve the poor, but to be with the poor. And also just to commend the mission of Hearts of Joy International into the hands of your mother that you've given to us to be our mother, as we say, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed art thou amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb,
Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us
sinners, the hour of our death. Amen.
May Almighty God bless you all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
All right. Thank
Thank
you
you so much. Yeah, thanks for having me. This was so fun.
Awesome. It was
Thank
fun.
you.